Hello and welcome. In this tutorial we're going to discuss lists and tuples as well as what is different between the two and what is similar. So first of all I'm going to create a variable L which will represent our list, and as you can see the list starts and ends with square brackets. My list is going to have 4 elements: 5, 10, 15, 20, and as you can see they're separated by a comma. So in a list the elements are separated by a comma and it starts and ends with these square brackets. A tuple, on the other hand, is quite similar. It still has the elements separated by commas, but it starts and ends with parentheses. So my tuple is going to have the values of 10, 20, 30, and 40. So what is the difference? What is the main difference between the two? Well, a tuple is a list that you can't change. You can't add a value to it, you can't remove a value, you can't change the order of the values. Basically, the tuple will remain as it is as the first time you specify it. Now the list, well, it's flexible. You can add a new value, you can basically remove any value that you want. So let's try to append a new value. So L is our variable and we would like to append the value 25. So our new list, we would like to have 5, 10, 15, 20, and then 25. So if I print the list after appending this new value, then the outcome is exactly what I expected. Now if I try to do that to the tuple, and I want to have 10, 20, 30, 40, and then 50, unfortunately that will raise an error. And what is very good is that actually it's very good to know how to read the error. And as you can see, the red text, it says that there is a file that you're trying to run, which is this file. And then on line 4, which is basically this part, t.append 50, you can't do that. There's something wrong there. And if you decide to just Google this part, then I'm sure that the first result would help you to understand that you can't modify a tuple. That's basically the key characteristic of a tuple. But maybe at some point of time you want to have a list that you want to remain as it is. You want to make sure that it never changes, and that's fine. So there is use case for tuple, but more often than not you will be using a list. Now what is same actually is, for example, if you want to get the maximum value, you can print the maximum value of L, so the maximum value that's within the list, but you can also print the maximum value that's within the tuple, and that's fine, because again, you're not modifying, you're just accessing the values and then you're looking for the highest value. If you want, you can do the same for the minimum value, so the lowest value in the list and in the tuple, and that's completely fine. In the next part, basically I will just work with the list, because for tuple, well, there's not much we can do. So this list is already sorted, so it starts from 5 and it goes up, it increments by 5 and it ends at 20. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to change the order. I will start with 5 and then 20, 15, and end with 10. How do I sort a list? Well, there is a method which is called sort. So if I just call the variable and then I use the method .sort, use the parenthesis, and then print the new list after I've sorted it, well, the outcome would be what I would expect: 5, 10, 15, and 20. Now, what if I wanted this to be in the reverse order? So what if I wanted to have 20 as the first element and then going back to 5? Well, L.reverse would do the job. So it takes whatever list you have and it puts it the other way around. Now, list, as you can see, although this is quite a short list, for the next example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create more elements in the list. So I'll have, for example, 5, 6, 8, 8, 9, 10, 5, and I'm going to copy these numbers and I'm going to paste them a few more times. So now I have a list. How do I know how many elements are there in this list? Well, I can print the len, which is short of length, of L. But also, let's imagine that these are grades of college students that took an exam, and this is the result. So we would like to know how many students took the exam and how many of them got, for example, an 8. So print count, which would be basically l.count. So in the list we want to count how many times the value 8 appears, and then this would be the outcome. So we have 28 students, out of which 8 got a mark of 8, right? So this is how you can get the values. You can sort the values, and then you can get the length of the value as well as count how many times a value appears there. Now, what is a bit more difficult for beginners is usually appending a value at a given place in the list. So if we had a list 5, and then, for example, we're missing 10, so it continues with 15, 20, and 25. And how do we add the value 10 between 5 and 15? We already saw that if we use l.append and we want to add 10, well, it would be at the end. So let me also print l. It would be at the end, but that's not where we want it. Yeah, we can do this and then sort the list. That would work. But what if we want to append the value 10 here? Well, what you should know is that Python counts a bit differently than human. So what I mean by that is the first element for us is 5. Well, for Python, this is not the first but the 0th element. So it starts counting 0 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We start with 1, but Python starts with 0. How do we get, for example, the first element? Let's say we want to print L, and then in square brackets I'm going to ask Python to print the first element, and as you can see I get 15, and that's of course not logical for us, but you should get used to this. So how do we add the value 10 as the, well, in Python terms as the first element, because 5 is our 0th element, so we need to add 10 as the first element. Well, we can't use l.append because here we only get the object, and as we can see it says append object to the end of the list, and that's not what we need. What we need is l.insert. And now what this method does is, first we have to specify where we want to append the object, and then we need to basically specify the object that we want to append. Now we want to append it, the index is 1, and the object that we want to append is 10. So if I print L now, then I get the list that I actually wanted to have. And there's a lot more to do with lists. For example, what you might use is called slicing, and that's something that we'll cover in the next video. So for now, the last part that I think would be good to know is the remove and pop methods. And what this means is, well, what if we want to remove a value? What if we don't want the 15 anymore? We just want to get rid of it. Well, we can do l.remove, but what you should know is that it only removes the first occurrence of the value. So we can remove 15, and then if you print the list, it's no longer there. But if we have 15 twice, then it only removes the first occurrence of 15. That's it. And this is something that you need to keep in mind if you decide to use this method. Now there's one more method that you can use, and that's called the pop method. And it pops, basically it returns the item at the index. Now, as you can see, this is not, it doesn't care about the value that's in the list, but the index. So if I decide to pop 0, well, 0 is, the 0th element is 5. So if I decide to print L, well, it no longer contains the first element, the 0th element, because, well, we decided to remove it, to pop it out. So this would be all regarding this initial tutorial on lists and tuples, and in the next one we're going to continue with slicing lists, but we're also going to use slicing on string as well. So if you have any questions or comments, if something was unclear in this tutorial, please leave a comment below and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.